Hi everyone. Um, for the first video of this channel, my name is Rai. First of all, for the first video of this channel, I wanted to cover our UDL Season 5 run. I'm choosing this as the first league that I cover just because UDL has been known to be the most distinguished, prestige, competitive league in the community at the moment. And it's also pretty secluded from the rest of the community, so I figured that for most of the audience this would be a good opportunity to see what kind of the league was like, since it's kind of closed off. And yeah, this is my second season in UDL, and so going into this I really wanted to win the championship, of course, but just kind of prove that I'm like up there when it comes to like some of the top players, as pretty much everybody who is like really good at the game is in this league. So yeah, to begin, I'd say let's just dive into how it's broken down, how the league is broken down. So first off, there are two different conferences, being Violet and Scarlet, and within each of them are like two different divisions for each. So I was in the Ting East division, and as you can see, my division consisted of myself, Luffy, Watashi, Helmi, Ice, Cake Harris. And when it comes to our divisions, we play everybody in our division, and then we play one game, or I think one or two games of somebody else from the other division within our conference. So yeah, this was a pre-home draft, so that means that there are no like post-home mons involved, like no Landers, no Torn or anything like that. This was like just whatever is in the game currently. And this was actually a pretty interesting league, like where it was implemented a TERA tax, and like essentially with the TERA tax, depending on what you got, you would have to pay extra for the mod that you purchased. So like for example with D-Knight, even though D-Knight is worth 20 points, if I wanted to make it my TERA captain, it would be an extra 5 points. So I'm pretty sure it was around like, I think 25% tax for if you made a mon your TERA captain. And yeah, so I thought that was a pretty nice way to implement some sort of tax for Terramons, like just to make it a little bit more balanced. And yeah, going into this, there was like a couple mons that I really wanted. Of course, like Dragonite is amazing as a Terramon, same with like Iron Bundle. The thing is, like, some mons were Terra banned, so like all the mons in purple, I'm pretty sure were Terra banned. Yeah, so like essentially Dragonite and Palafin were easily the best two Terra mons available. And I think I had like a late-ish pick, like closer to the wheel, like back wheel, so that like kind of factored into what I ended up getting. But in this video, I'm mainly going to be covering just my week to weeks and like my matchups and teams. And so yeah, we're just gonna go through it one by one. This video specifically, we're just gonna go through our first 4 weeks, and then other videos will showcase our later weeks. So let's just dive into it. So going into week 1, right? First, we can see what my draft consisted of at the start. Number 1, we were able to get Roaring Moon and Dragonite, which I actually really liked, just as a double Dragon Core. You might be thinking like, of course, these mons are both Dragon types. You're starting off with shared weaknesses off the bat, but really Dragonite is whatever type it wants to be. Dragonite does whatever it wants. It's not a dragon type, it's every type. Especially with TERA. And so like, and plus the mons are very different in the way how they function, whereas Dragonite can of course be the typical normal E-speed breaker, or even a defensive mon, whereas Roaring Moon is really fast and has pivoting. And so yeah, had those two. Ended up drafting Azu just because Azu was, I felt, a very good check to a lot of the meta. Things like Qian Pao, Chi Yu, just a lot of these threats. Even Iron Bundle to an extent with Thick Fat. I felt that Azu was really nice to handle. And so that was part of the reason why I got that. I got Glamora as some hazard removal and hazards on the team. Pretty standard. I feel like everybody knows about Glamora. Also picked up PAWMOT. Revival Blessing was allowed in this league. I'm pretty sure you just couldn't use Lepa Berry with it. But yeah, Revival Blessing was utilized, so I got PAWMOT as well. I drafted Fortress for some extra removal, and due to the TERA tax with Dragonite, it really cut into the amount of points that I had. So in terms of my later picks, I kind of had to get some cheat mons. So I ended up picking Palossand, Masquerain, and Cacturne, just as like a way to fill some roles. Palossand was mainly just to have a ground type and a spin blocker. And then Masquerain was just for like some cheap webs and all that, and Cacturne is whatever. But yeah, so looking at week 1, right? Week 1, we're facing Ice, and he has a TERA Espather. So everybody knows about TERA Espather. That mon is a huge threat, specifically versus my team. When my dark type is a Roaring Moon, and Espather has Dazzle, it's very, very scary. And so I was just really paying attention about not losing to the Espather, as I have checks to a lot of his other threats, like things like Qian Pao I have Azu for, and I also have like Mach Punch PAWMOT, and also as well with Iron Moth. Like Iron Moth is definitely a huge threat for sure, but at least I have things like Glamora and Dragonite as well, and Aqua Jet Azu. So really the main threat was not losing to Espather. And if I recall, the things that I was scared about the most when it came to this matchup was TERA Psychic Espather and TERA Water Espather. TERA Water, due to the fact that it would be able to beat Fortress 1v1, because even though Espather can't beat Fortress without TERA Fire necessarily, like it can't kill it, TERA Water would be able to beat it longevity wise. And basically resist gyro balls and continue to keep setting up like coal mines and everything. So, and plus TERA Water would allow him to resist the Aqua Jet from Azu as well. So that was a big threat. And I was also very nervous about something like TERA Psychic, because it would be able to resist the strong Mach Punch from PAWMOT, and also with stored power, TERA Psychic, Calm Mines, all of that would be able to do a lot of damage to my team, and all the coverage that he needs is just Dazzle for Roaring Moon. So yeah, that was like one of the biggest threats. So yeah, let's dive into our team for this matchup. So first off, we had Dragonite with it was a special, well, mixed Dragonite with TERA Fire. This was mainly our check to Iron Moth, as I kind of didn't have an Iron Moth switching on my team, and so even though we're primarily special, I had to make sure I had Earthquake on it, just so that I had some way of knocking out Iron Moth right away. TERA Fire was really nice because Flamethrower is just super free versus his team. Like TERA Fire Flamethrower allows me to break through Corviknight, allows me to hit Tinkaton, allows me to hit Qian Pao really hard, and he doesn't have a way of really breaking through a bulky fire type other than some maybe like Haxorus with Mold Breaker Earthquake. That's really about it. And so, and even when it comes to Quag, Dragonite with Draco can prey on Quagsire's low Spadef and really hit it hard with Draco, and because of Unaware, it will ignore my special attack drop. So I just felt Dragonite was really good as just a breaker here, and also a semi-check to things like Qian Pao and Iron Moth. I'm pretty sure I was debating running T-Wave over Earthquake, just so I could T-Wave a Espather and stop it from setting up. But I figured that Earthquake was just better overall, so that I didn't lose to a booster energy Iron Moth. And yeah, so that was my Dragonite set. Looking at my fortress, this fortress was mainly just a check to Haxorus. Haxorus was a pretty scary mon versus my team to just switch into. So Haxorus was primarily checking, Fortress was mainly checking Haxorus, being able to Gyro Ball if it clicked DD. Also, Fortress was pretty nice for Chien Pao as well, as we can eat any hit and threaten it out with a Gyro Ball or Body Press. I ran Giga Drain just because I didn't want to be hazard stacked by Quagsire unchecked, and Fortress was one of my main ways of getting rid of his hazards. So I wanted to make sure I had Giga Drain to beat down his Quag. I think I did about like 40 to 50% to Quagsire, so it was pretty nice. And then I just had spikes for some hazard chip versus team. Next up, I had Roaring Moon, choice banded. Now Roaring Moon was kind of a iffy mon in this matchup. It was very strange. Like I remember I was really trying to see if special Roaring Moon or mix at least could do some work with the likes of like Fire Blast to try and hit Corviknight, things like that. But unfortunately, Roaring Moon is just so weak when it comes to its special offensive stats that there was like no way that a mixed Roaring Moon could ever work. I remember I was in the trenches trying to find some type of Roaring Moon that could be decent, just because between a Spothra having Dazzle, Corviknight really hard walling any physical sets, and then Chien Pao stopping like any DD sets with Ice Shard, it was super tough to find a set that was worth bringing. So I ended up just settling on Banded. I figured that Banded could be decent in the fact that like late game Scale Shot could maybe do some cleaning if I had eliminated like Chien Pao. Also Banded Crunch was also pretty free, as I didn't think that he would bring Tinkaton, just because Tinkaton seemed not that great versus my team. And so I really was liking just TERA Crunch spam as well as Fire Fang as well. I felt that both were equally pretty decent. But really, Roaring Moon was just a facilitator in this game. Next up, Glamora. This was intended to be my lead. Looking at his team, right? Glamora with Corrosion Toxic is really free because I can Toxic any one of his Steel types, specifically Corviknight. And Toxicing Corviknight would allow me to beat him 1v1 when it came to having up my rocks. And I really wanted to have up my rocks because I wanted to get that chip on Chien Pao and Iron Moth. That was like super important, just for when it came to Azu and some of my other mons. So that was like a huge thing. And Energy Ball as well was there for Quagsire, just because I didn't want any of my hazard mons to end up being spike stacked or like hazard stacked back by Quag. And then Earth Power was just there for the Iron Moth, just because that's a huge threat to my team, and Glamora was part of the switch in. That's why I'm like primarily Spadef. Next up was PAWMOT. So the idea behind PAWMOT was that with a Spothra being so scary versus my team, I really wanted to make sure that I had some way of punishing him if he was TERA Water. Since TERA Water would be able to take on things like Dragonite and Fortress, I wanted to make sure I had a way of really revenging a Spothra if it got boosted up. And so with PAWMOT, it's actually very strong when it comes to some of its moves, like the combo of Fake Out and Mach Punch to phase death a Spothra does I think pretty much near 50%. And so that was like one of the reasons I really liked Life Orb PAWMOT here, was just as a revenge killer. Fake Out helped versus things like Iron Moth. Fake Out plus Mach Punch also helped with Haxorus as well, revenging that. And of course, Fake Out Mach Punch helps with Chien Pao. But yeah, this PAWMOT was really here for the Espathra to make sure that I had some way of revenge killing it if it got through my main check, which was the Azu. So this Azu was AV, primarily speed death, but also attack invested. And really this Azu was here to ensure that I didn't lose to Espathra. So we had talked about the TERA Psychic set, the TERA Water set being threats. TERA's Water, even though it's very bulky, could eat Azu hits. Play Rough still did a good amount, so that Play Rough plus Jet put him in range of Fake Out plus Mach Punch, even if he was lefties. And yeah, just any other set that could be scary, like a TERA Fire set or something like that, Azu handled. And I'm pretty sure this Azu even lived like a plus, like a Calm Mind boosted with maybe like a couple speed boosts, stored power from a TERA Psychic Espathra set. Like this was my dedicated check to Espathra. So yeah, basically kind of use Azu for Espathra and Fortress for Chien-Pao, even though I could have alternated it, but I felt like this was a little bit better. So yeah, let's dive into the week 1 match versus Ice. So looking at this matchup, let me switch sides. So he did end up bringing the Tinkaton, and he did bring the Quag. So other than the Tinkaton, this was mainly expected. I didn't think Haxorus would come just because of my double dragons, Azu and Fortress. I just felt like it wasn't that great, and his other mons were not really that relevant. So yeah, like I said, my lead was mainly Gamora, so that's what I'm pretty sure we led off with here. Oh no, we led off with Dragonite. So if I recall, I ended up leading off with Dragonite just because it really just claimed one versus his team. Dragonite was just really hard for him to break, and he had no way of like kind of killing it. So that's where lead Dragonite was like just really nice. But I ended up swapping out just because I didn't want him to T-Wave my Dragonite, as it would have made checking something like Iron Moth a little bit more difficult if I had to worry about being T-Waved. And I knew my Fortress could take on whatever Tinkaton wanted to do, plus Rapid Spin any hazards. But he ends up deciding to go for his screens. And so on these screen turns, I ended up just getting up my Spike. I wasn't super concerned about screens because even though it allowed the Espathra to set up, I made sure I packed Brick Break on my Azu, because I didn't want any sort of screens from Corviknight or Tinkaton to allow Espathra to set up. And so that's why, part of the reasons why I packed Brick Break on Azu. So even if he goes out to Espathra, because I already was intending to use Azu as my check, I could just Brick Break the screen. So I ended up prioritizing getting up my spikes. Predicting him to go hard out into Espathra, I ended up going out to Azu. But he actually just sets up his rock, so he's pretty much just an all utility set on Tinkaton. I ended up swapping out Azu because I didn't want to take a Gigaton Hammer or anything like that, as he ends up clicking that move. And so this is a fine position for me. I end up just clicking Rapid Spin to get rid of the rocks on my side. And he ends up bringing out Iron Moth, which was Air Balloon. So it was actually really good that I had popped that, because that Iron Moth could have been very, very scary if I had not popped that Air Balloon, because I wouldn't have been able to Earthquake it with Dragonite. So since I popped the balloon, I can easily go right out to my Dragonite, which is my main check to Iron Moth, since I'm TERA Fire. He ends up not getting a boost from that Fire Dance, which is fine for me. I ended up roosting, predicting him to swap out. It was pretty free. I always lived like Sludge Wave, so it was just very free. He ends up going out to Corviknight, and seeing that he's a Corviknight with this screen setup, I kind of figured that he was a setup Corviknight, but I had like no choice but to click Flamethrower, as he ends up being Weakness Policy and Bulk Up. So this was kind of a threat because, of course, Power Trip shenanigans, but I also do still have my multi-scale intact, so I knew my Dragonite could live any hit, even though he's so like boosted up. And he ends up clicking Brave Bird, and my Dragonite is basically able to 1v1 this with multi-scale and just being bulky. So yeah, Dragonite already coming through. Next he goes out to Quag, and I just clicked Draco because I really wanted to get rid of this Quag so that my team is just even more freed up, and I didn't have a good switch in the Quag anyway, so Draco was just really free on this turn. Draco does a lot of damage to him, but he ends up clicking Yawn. Not wanting my Dragonite to fall asleep, I end up swapping out in the Fortress because I knew if he sets up any hazards, I can just Rapid Spin away, and I do have Giga Drain as well. So yeah, end up clicking the Rapid Spin, and this is actually a position that was kind of scary for me just because my Dragonite didn't have multi-scale anymore, so I wasn't like susceptible to Sludge Waves, but I do still have my Spadef Glamora intact, so I use that as my switch in, and I end up just claiming kill with Earth Power as he has no resist. He ends up going to Tinkaton, and I figured that he was going to try and set back up screen, so I just end up getting up my rocks to try and get some chip versus Chien-Pao and Iron Moth. And this is the turn where he brings out a Spathra on the with the screens up. So this was a pretty scary turn, of course, but the hazards let me know that he was in fact boots, which is good information because it means that he's not leftovers, which ends up helping the rolls when it comes to Azu plus PAWMOT to kill him. And so he ends up swapping out, I guess fearing whatever Azu is going to do, but I do pack the Brick Break and break through any of his screens. And so this is a really good position for me, since I'm like kind of getting a lot of information about his team, and I'm able to get back my Roost with Dragonite so that it's a check to Chien-Pao and Iron Moth. So now he has the Reflect up, he sets up a Calm Mind with a Spathra, and my main goal is just getting as much chip as possible so that my PAWMOT can revenge. So he is in fact the TERA Psychic set, but this AV Azu is able to live. We land Play Rough, get off the damage needed, and on this turn, even though I could have clicked Aqua Jet to get him a little bit lower to ensure that Mach Punch plus Fake Out kill, because he is TERA Psychic, I was worried about him clicking Roost, so I just felt it was a little bit better to just ensure that he stayed around this range rather than clicking Jet into his Roost and then having him kill me after. So my Azu ends up going down, but it did its job primarily, and now I'm just relying on PAWMOT with the combo of Fake Out plus Mach Punch to kill him, and as we can see here, it ends up being enough to take out the Spathra. So that's pretty much the biggest threat of his team gone. No other Mon was really like going to be able to sweep me at this point, just because I had like Fortress still healthy and my Dragonite with multi-scale. So PAWMOT actually ends up just being able to take it the rest of the game. It was just a huge threat versus his entire team. It stabs alone. So yeah, this ended up being a week 1 dub. Made it through the Spathra. Part of the thing that I really realized is that like even though free TERA on whatever TERA captain is really scary, as you know, a Mon can be any type, sometimes you really can predict what TERA a Mon is going to be, and I felt like this kind of showcased that it is possible to predict, as I was really fearing the TERA Psychic set and he ended up bringing it, and I feel like I prepared for it accordingly. So yeah, diving into week 2. So looking at this matchup, my opponent Watashi, he has a pretty scary team with TERA Volk, another straight demon like a Spathra. TERA Volk is very scary. He also has things like Cyclizar with Shed Tail as well to kind of enable it, and also things like Garchomp, Goldango, Rotom Wash, Hat. This is another, I feel like a lot of the teams in UDL were pretty much top heavy, which I think is just always the play, because you always want a more top heavy team that has a lot of threats than something that's more spread out. But yeah, he also had a Ditto too, which was a little bit annoying, just because it could copy any of my boosts from Dragonite and possibly reverse sweep me. Also, by the way too, we ended up making I think like around 2 transactions, where we dropped the Palo Sand and the Masquerade Cacturn and got Toad Scroll and Driftblim. So I ended up picking Toad Scroll, and part of the reason I picked up Toad Scroll was number one, to get another spinner and hazard setter, as I felt like any pressure I could take off of Fortress and Glamora that I could would be nice. And also Toad Scroll looked very, very good in this matchup, and I felt like it would just be worth it to have in this matchup specifically. I also picked up Driftblim just to have a ghost type to spin block. So yeah. But anyways, looking at this matchup, like I said, TERA Volk was like very threatening. However, my Roaring Moon also was just super scary for him as well, as he didn't have a good crunch switch in, and it's also bulky enough to eat hits from things like Goldango and Rotom Wash. Predicting his TERA type from Volk, I was thinking that he would be possibly like a TERA Water set. I think TERA Water made a lot of sense, similar to his Spother, being able to eat the hit from Azu with Aqua Jet. I felt like made a lot of sense. Also giving a coverage move to break through Glamora as well. But yeah, things like my Azu and like Dragonite, of course, always looked great. And he also didn't have a good switch into PAWMOT as well, where PAWMOT stabs and Ice Punch just kind of did a lot of work. So let's dive into my team for this week. So we're rocking with the TERA Fire Dragonite again. So it's actually kind of funny because most people would assume that TERA Normal would be the bring, or like TERA Flying most of the time. But in my first 2 weeks, I was bringing TERA Fire. And TERA Fire was just really nice in this matchup as well. Number one, being able to eat any hit from Volcarona was just very, very nice. Any sort of Bug Buzz set, or like Fire Blast as well. And TERA Fire also allowed me to eat Draining Kisses from Hatterene and any hits from Goldango, like Make It Rain. And so I felt that TERA Fire was just overall very good when it came to a defensive typing for a setup. This we are rocking the Dragonant set because the combo of TERA Blast Fire plus Outrage really had no switch-ins on his team. Outrage was able to take out things like Wash, and also hit Volcarona hard if I was unboosted, if I needed to use Dragonite as a check to Volk. And then TERA Blast hit pretty much everything else where I didn't need to lock into Outrage. But yeah. Next up oh my gosh, let me close out this. Next up we had PAWMOT with a Punching Glove set. So Punching Gloves basically made it so that none of our punching moves specifically made contact with Garchomp, where we would take Rocky Helmet plus Rough Skin, which I thought was very valuable. It also made it so that we wouldn't potentially get Flame Body burned by Volk. So I just felt that Punching Gloves was just really nice here. It also boosts our all of our punching moves like Thunder Punch, Ice Punch, Mach Punch, and really PAWMOT, the goal of this mon here was just to have Mach Punch to revenge any sort of TERA Water Volk set. Also Mach Punch was just very strong versus Cyclozar, preventing it from being able to Shed Tail, and really Double Shock plus Ice Punch just bopped his entire team. Like Double Shock does a lot of damage to Goldango, Wash, Hatterene, Thunder Punch if in the case of I didn't want to lose my electric typing on PAWMOT. And so yeah, it was just a really good revenger. It outsped a lot of his team and Mach Punched the mons that were faster. So PAWMOT just looked very good here. Next up was Azu. So I didn't have a great Garchomp switch in on my team, as my only ground resists were Dragonite and Toedscruel, and Toedscruel does not want to take on Garchomp at all, and my Dragonite was TERA Fire and also really needed to answer his threats of like Volk. So I wanted to bring a Air Balloon Azu set, since I could take any sort of earthquake from Garchomp and also be immune to any dragon stab as well. On Azu, we're running Play Rough, Liquidation, Facade, Jet. Facade was primarily so that if I ended up getting burned from Wash or making contact with Vulcan getting burned, Facade would still be some good neutral damage versus his team. Play Rough, Liquidation, Jet, pretty much just the rest of everything else. And yeah, like I said, this is really so that I didn't lose to like a SD Garchomp or anything like that, or really just so I had to switch in general, since Earthquake could be most likely his first move of choice. But yeah, next up we brought Booster Energy Roaring Moon. So when it comes to Booster Energy Roaring Moon, this mon, like I said, didn't have a lot of checks from his team, as he didn't have good dark type switch-ins, and I figured with Scale Shot and plus I think this was a Booster Energy Attack Roaring Moon, yeah, like I could easily just outspeed his team without clicking Dragon Dance, and Scale Shot was really nice for not making contact versus Garchomp or Volk. And yeah, just a very solid mon here for sure. Yeah, not a lot of checks. Diving into our next mon that we brought Air Balloon Glamora. So Air Balloon Glamora was also so that I could be immune to any sort of Garchomp move and dazzle it back. Like I said, I really want to make my team anti-Garchomp since I didn't have a good switch in. And really, Glamora was really fire here just because it was able to beat the Hatterene 1v1, since that's his only sort of hazard stopping other than Rapid Spin Cyclizar. And so because of Glamora's poison typing and Sludge Wave hitting hard, like I would be able to set up spikes versus his team, which a lot of his team is susceptible to spikes. So I just found Glamora very valuable for that. And like I said, having Dazzle and Air Balloon to possibly take on the Garchomp, I thought was nice as well. And then last up, we brought the new addition, Toadscruel. So Toadscruel was really here so that I had a check to Rotom Wash to stop it from just clicking Bolt all over my team, as well as being able to switch into things like Goldango as well. So, and plus with its ability where it's normally pretty bad, it actually allowed me to click Toxic versus Hatterene. So really, Toadscruel was just very hard for his team to break, and just was a good stopgap versus Wash, and also provided spin for this team. Even though he has Goldango to block, Earth Power would allow me to break through Goldango. So just being able to spin any of his hazards pretty much unchecked, I thought was very valuable. But yeah, so that's my team for week 2. Let's go into the match. So he did end up bringing pretty much his top 6, but he ended up leaving off Wash for Ditto. So I figured that he may end up bringing Ditto just because he wanted to copy over any sort of Belly Drum Azu set, or like a Roaring Moon or something like that. So Ditto was a little bit annoying, but not the end of the world. Also, with no Wash to my Azu became a little bit more free. So that was another benefit of him bringing the Ditto. But let's just look into this match real quick. So I ended up leading PAWMOT just because PAWMOT really had like no good answers for his team, and if he led Cyclizar, I could quick Mach Punch before he ended up Shed Tailing out. I ended up leading with Hatterene, so I'm forced to swap out as I can't kill it in one hit. I go straight out to Toadscruel because I know Spadef Toadscruel can eat any sort of hit from Hatterene, but he ends up doubling out into Garchomp, and this is not a bad like matchup for me, just because even though this wasn't my intended check for Garchomp, I can eat any sort of hit from it 1v1. And he ends up clicking Rocks as I click Toxic, which I'm able to put this Garchomp on a timer to help out the likes of like Azu or like Glim if my Air Balloon ends up getting popped. He ends up clicking Rocks, which is fine. I'm pretty sure I ended up attempting to spin, but he ends up going hard in the Goldango. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can just Earth Power and get some damage off of him and beat him 1v1, as this was my intended check. But he ends up doubling straight out into Volk and taking the Earth Power. So this is the biggest threat on his team, the TERA Volk. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I've already gotten off some chip on the Volk, which is pretty nice. And I do pack the Toxic as well. And just with Toadscroll's natural Spadef and the fact that I'm a Spadef set, I knew that I could eat any sort of fire move as well. So even though I could be risking my Toadscroll here, I figured that it would be best to get off a Toxic so that I didn't allow him to set up for free as I swapped out. But I end up missing the Toxic, which was really, really unfortunate. He actually reveals to be TERA Steel, which in my mind, since I already revealed Toxic, I feel like you should have clicked TERA Steel immediately and not have risked that. But it ends up working out for him. He ends up Terra Blasting me, which was like basically ended up doing no damage. But even though he was TERA Steel, this wasn't entirely bad for me, just because I knew that with my TERA Fire Dragonite in the back with multi-scale, I could easily live any sort of hit from him and kill him back with TERA Blast. So even though TERA Steel would be able to avoid the Toxic from Toadscroll, I still had an out. Plus, I also had Mach Punch from PAWMOT as well. So honestly, I was kind of surprised by the TERA Steel bring, but maybe he really just wanted it to avoid Toxics. So I don't really know. But yeah, he ends up setting up another Quiver Dance as I end up clicking spin because I figured I could use this opportunity to get rid of the hazards. And so I'm able to spin away his rocks. And I go hard out into my Dragonite as he clicks Terra Blast, which is a little bit scary. But with me being terrified, I knew I could catch him off guard and eat his Terra Blast that he would go for, and then end up killing him with my own Terra Blast. So the big star on his team is gone, being Volt, and I'm able to bring out Dragonite. So next he ends up bringing out Garchomp, sets up his layers, and I use my main response being Azu, and I'm able to take him out with Play Rough. This is not the best for me since he's able to get up a lot of layers of hazards, and I still have to worry about his threat of Ditto as well, just copying any sort of one of my mons like Dragonite or Roaring Moon. Next up, he has a Goldango, and like I said, my Toadscroll is my main answer, and with Protect and Lefties, I am able to stall it out a little bit, but this is also not the greatest for me since my Toadscroll is pretty low, and I have to break past this Goldango to ever spin, and this Goldango actually outspeeds me. So like basically Toadscroll is unable to spin block. Like this Goldango, even though I was supposed to check it, is able to spin block me, and I'm not able to get off my rapid spin. So these hazards are pretty much here to stay, which is fairly annoying. But with him taking out my Toadscroll, I'm able to bring back out my Dragonite and get up a Roost to get it back healthy. He ends up using his opportunity to Shed Tail into his Ditto to transform into my Dragonite. And I'd actually considered not running a like Outrage or anything on Dragonite to like make it so that his Ditto would be unable to beat mine 1v1, but it didn't really matter since I figured that I still had some outs for Dragonite with something like my Azu being able to take any sort of hit from his Dragonite, even if he like had Outrage or whatever. And so yeah, I end up clicking Terra Blast. I don't end up breaking the sub since he's behind multi-scale, but he is locked into Outrage, so I use the opportunity to bring out my Azu since I know that he's Choice Scarf locked into Outrage. And so he ends up having to be forced to swap out. I get off a Play Rough on Goldango and I can just Aqua Jet after, but he ends up swapping out into Ditto, which is fine because I'm getting chip on this Ditto that's unrecoverable. And so here I just use the opportunity to bring out my Glamora since Garchomp is gone, and he also didn't bring like I don't think he had a poison type on his draft, but I knew that to kill my own Azu he had to click player up, so I used this opportunity to bring out my Glamora, and I'm pretty much just stacking it so that I can get up a T-Spike, but he ends up swapping out into Cyclozar after I get hit, and he ends up taking me out with Draco. And this is fine for me because this is another opportunity I can use to get back up my Dragonite to full and potentially just win this game with my stabs. He ends up being taunt though to stop me from getting my full multi-scale back, and but that's fine though. I end up just Terra blasting through his Hatterene that he ends up bringing out, and really my Dragonite is just looking very good because it's pretty much unkillable for him, and as long as I preserve my Azu, I can stop any sort of outrage sweep from him, as well as the fact that I'm neutral to his outrage, but my outrage is super effective versus him. And plus, even with the para, I still outspeed his Hatterene as well. So I end up just kind of Terra blasting through the rest of his draft. But on the Cyclozar play, I didn't want him to take out my Dragonite with Draco, so I end up just going hard out into my Azu. And my Azu can throw in any mon with Aqua Jet as well. His team is just fairly chipped and low, so Azu is looking really good to just clean here, since every single mon of his is in range of Jet, and so I'm pretty sure it's Azu is just able to take it here. Not even Rapid Spin could kill my Azu, so yeah. And yeah, Aqua Jet ends up kind of just picking off the rest of his team, and he ends up forfeiting. So that was a week 2 W. Able to kind of, I think we kind of had control of the match the entire time. It was kind of unfortunate that my Roaring Moon didn't ever even get to come out, but this was just showing the power of Dragonite just in general. I didn't even like click Dragonins here, but just its bulk and ability to Terra to check other Terramons is just super valuable. And so I was really proud of Terrifier Dragonite putting in the work again, just being able to 1v1 his entire team. So yeah. Next up, let's dive into our week 3. So our week 3 is versus Kyle/Luffy, and this was a pretty scary matchup right here. So Kyle has the Iron Valiant, Baxcalibur, Slowking, Iron Jugulis, Donphan, Earthworm, Hariyama, Greedent, Brambleghast, and just looking at his team, Iron Valiant is a huge threat. Like, I don't have great fairy resist. Like, I have Glamora and Fortress, of course, but they're both way slower than Iron Valiant, and Iron Valiant has coverage for both of them. So I was just really fearing Iron Valiant for sure, and as well as the fact that like, just in general, even though I had good checks for Baxcalibur, like, it was still kind of threatening with things like Ice Shard being able to kill things like Roaring Moon and Dragonite. Additionally as well, Terra Jugulis was kind of a wild card here. I actually think that if Kyle had Terra Bax over Jugulis, this would be a way worse matchup for me, but he ends up having the Terra Jugulis, so I do have to account for that. The first thing I really noticed about his team though was that he didn't have a great way of handling fairy types. Number one, both of his top mons, being Valiant and Baxcalibur, were weak to fairy, as well as the fact that his only fairy resist was Earthworm. So that was part of the thing that I played into for this matchup, was exploiting that Terra, like that fairy weakness, by using Terra Dragonite, as well as things like my Azu being very valuable as well, being able to eat any sort of hit from Valiant, and being able to check Baxcalibur as well, unless it packed like Thunderfang or Freeze Dry. And yeah, those are the main things that I really scouted for. Plus the likes of like Roaring Moon was also fairly decent, just because it outspeeds Valiant no matter what. So yeah, this matchup wasn't too bad for me just on paper, knowing the fact that I could really use fairy to my advantage. So diving into the team that I brought. So looking at it, right, I ended up bringing number one, Booster Energy Roaring Moon, So this was a booster energy attack set. I figured that even though he could be TERA, not TERA, booster energy speed Valiant, it was still worth to have the TERA, oh my god, I keep saying TERA, booster energy attack on Roaring Moon, since that I could, the extra power could allow me to break through something like Earthworm or Donphan. And so yeah, that was my idea behind that. And I had the likes of like acrobatics to handle things like Hariyama and Valiant, and then I packed on U-turn as well just to kind of have momentum. This Roaring Moon was partially my switch into the likes of Slowking and potentially Iron Jugulus as well, since Roaring Moon has pretty good natural Spadef bulk. So I knew that I could possibly use it as a pivot into Jugulus and U-turn out on whatever he wanted to bring out. So yeah, Roaring Moon was kind of just a facilitator here. That could also be a late game cleaner as well with booster energy. Next up, we brought Air Balloon Glamora. So similar set to last week where it was just attacks with hazards. His only hazard removal on his team was Donphan and Brambleghast, but Brambleghast wasn't really a factor. So it was mainly the Donphan, and I figured that with Air Balloon, I would be able to beat the Donphan 1v1 if I wanted to get up hazards with the likes of Energy Ball as well. And really, Glamora was just really hard for his team to switch into. Even Earthworm was kind of a non-issue, since even though it could take like an Earth Power because of its ability, I could just hazard stack versus it and then just sack off Glamora to enable one of my other mons. So yeah, just a solid mon here. Next up, I brought AV Azu. So AV Azu makes its return. AV Azu was primarily for the Jugulus. This is my main Jugulus check. My team kind of lacks Spadef walls, and so I figured that I honestly couldn't predict what TERA the Jugulus would be, but I figured that any sort of TERA that it was, AV Azu would be able to check it, so that something like PAWMOT with Mach Punch would be able to revenge afterwards. And so that was kind of my idea behind that. I also was able to rock the Trailblaze this week, and Trailblaze I figured could be decent if I ended up killing one of his mods with like Slowking or Donphan with Trailblaze, and then being able to outspeed the likes of like Baxcalibur or whatever. And so yeah, Azu is primarily just here for the Jugulus though, and also being able to eat any hit from Baxcalibur or Valiant. Next up, I brought Life Orb PAWMOT again. PAWMOT was just really valuable on my team as just a revenge killer, rocking Adamant. So I'm pretty sure I outspeed the entirety of his team with Adamant. And just its Mach Punch plus Fake Out combo is strong again. So being valuable to revenge killing any sort of booster energy speed Jugulus with TERA, or Mach Punch as well for Baxcalibur. And he really just didn't have a good switch into PAWMOT in general, so I figured that it would be a nice mon to have here with just the stabs alone. Next, I brought TERA Fairy Dragonite. So like I said, his team was very fairy weak in general, and even though I was a little bit concerned about Earthworm just kind of walling this set, as you can see, I am a substitute instead of a coverage move for it. I considered low kick, but I ended up rocking substitute. Reason why I was substitute was because I didn't want to get T-Waved by Slowking if I wanted to set up on it. This Dragonite was bulky enough to eat any sort of hit from Slowking as well. I ended up also running substitute just because I figured that even if he did bring Earthworm, unless he was rocking Iron Head, he wouldn't be able to break through my sub on Dragonite, and I could easily just end up clicking multiple Dragon Dances and Terra Blasting through him. And I figured Iron Head was pretty specific, as most Earthworms run just like Heavy Slam, and Heavy Slam does absolutely nothing to Terra Fairy Dragonite. So it just looked like a very solid set. And Terra Fairy would also allow me to eat any sort of hit from Valiant or backs as well. And Terra Blast would allow me to just kill them as well. So just a very solid mon here. And last up, I brought Fortress. So Fortress was my primary check to the likes of Baxcalibur. Since I was dedicating Azu to Iron Jugulus, I wanted to make sure I had a mon that could always eat any sort of hit from a DD or SC set. And so Fortress looked just very solid for that. Rapid Spin, being able to rapid spin any sort of hazards he put up with Non-Fear or Earthworm, and like Gyro Ball being able to take out Valiant, Baxcalibur, Jugulus, Vault Switch for the Slow King, so I could keep up momentum. And yeah, just looked like a pretty solid mon here. And so yeah, this was my team for Kyle. So let's just dive into this matchup. So I was actually pretty surprised that he ended up bringing the Greedent, as I kind of didn't even factor it into it being like just a mon that would be brought here. He ends up leaving the Slow King for it as well, so that was just kind of shocking. But I figured that Greedent, it's pretty straightforward what it does. It's usually like an SD or like a belly drum set or something like that. And I knew PAWMOT with Mach Punch would be able to kill it, like even if it was like some crazy like speed boosting set or something like that. So I wasn't super concerned, but it was just interesting that he brought it. But yeah, so let's kind of get this matchup started. So I end up leading Glamora here to just kind of get off my hazards. Glamora just looked like a super solid lead since I could eat any sort of hit, and even if he had out Donphan, I could avoid the Earthquake with my balloon and just Energy Ball kill him down. So he ends up leading with Hariyama, so this is not a terrible matchup for me since my Glamora is bulky and can eat any sort of hit from Hariyama. And I can kind of start getting up my hazards, as well as with T-Spike as well. Put a lot of pressure on him since he didn't bring a poison type. So I end up getting up my rocks as he clicks Drain Punch, and that ends up giving me my Toxic Spike as well. I swap out because I didn't want to sack my Glamora to any hit, since I figured it would still be valuable to just maybe possibly use as a pivot to Greedent or Hariyama down the line. So I end up going hard out into my Dragonite, expecting him to click like a fighting move, but he ends up clicking Earthquake, which is great because I avoid my multi-scale being taken out, and it ends up going hard Greedent. So I figured that this Greedent was his check to Dragonite. Now I don't know what world Greedent is checking Dragonite, but this is, I guess, his check. So it's pretty fine for me since the Greedent is not boots and ends up taking T-Spike. And so I just click Terra Blast since it's a very free click versus his team. And I also use the opportunity to click Sub as he ends up clicking Super Fang. So and he has a Citrus Berry with Cheek Pout. So yeah, this is, I'm guessing, just his main way of dealing with Dragonite, with the likes of like Super Fang and then Body Slam pairs. But my Dragonite is just basically able to 1v1 him with the likes of T-Spike up and Sub. But I end up swapping out once he reveals the Bulldoze because I didn't want to end up getting Body Slam paired. I just go hard out to my Fortress, which has the Rocky Helmet. He ends up clicking Super Fang versus me and chipping down my Fortress, but I figured it's fine since his Baxcalibur really has to do a lot to end up breaking through me, since I do have the Mach Punch to revenge him, and I still have Azu as well that can eat any hit. So I end up taking out the Greedent. He ends up going out to Donphan and clicking Rapid Spin and getting rid of all his hazards, but that's fine because he ends up taking like Rocky Helmet chip, and I'm able to get off the body press. And right now I'm just kind of prioritizing chipping down this Donphan so that something like my PAWMOT is even more free, as well as the likes of like Roaring Moon and everything. And like I said, I still have checks for Baxcalibur in the back, so even if he does break through this Fortress, it's fine. But he ends up going out into Valiant on the body press, which is fine. I end up just sacking off my Fortress as I didn't really have a good switch into Valiant anyways, and I figured that I could use this opportunity to really get Dragonite going. However, he does end up critting me with Moonblast, which was very unfortunate as my Dragonite was super bulky. Just looking at my team, like I was like max HP, like super bulky, and like that Moonblast wouldn't have done anything to me, and that ends up kind of factoring in just because I could have easily used my Dragonite as a switch in to something like Hariyama later on, or even like use the opportunity to get up a Roost versus something like Donphan as well. And so it just kind of sucked, but I am able to kill the Valiant at least, so that was a threat removed for me, so not the end of the world. Here he ends up bringing out Hariyama, and I end up trying to preserve my Dragonite, figuring that he had Bullet Punch to take out just like pick me off, and clicks Bullet Punch with my Glamora, which is completely fine because I'm able to get back up my T-Spikes, which is pretty solid. Back up my rocks as well, and I had actually considered getting off some damage off on Hariyama, but I figured that rocks would be valuable to kind of give me info about what his Jugulus or Bax was, so that's kind of why I prioritized rocks instead of damage. Here I end up going out to PAWMOT, clicking Fake Out to get a little bit of chip before I click my main move, and I figured that he wasn't going to be in range of I think I had close combat. Yeah, I figured that he wasn't going to be in range of close combat after that Fake Out chip, so I kind of had to end up sacking my Dragonite and bringing back out PAWMOT to click Fake Out again, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Here he ends up bringing out Donphan, taking the Fake Out, but I'm able to kill him with close combat afterwards. And here he brings out his TERA Iron Jugulus, so he reveals to be booster speed. So like I said, that's kind of the reason why I wanted to prioritize rocks, was just to get some chip on Jugulus. And he hard goes for the Terra Blast versus my Azu, but my Azu is set up. I'm AV, bulky, and Jugulus with Terra Speed is not going to be super strong. I mean with booster speed. And he ends up clicking Work Up versus my Azu, which I found to be pretty interesting. Since my Azu was very healthy, and it actually ends up working out for him, and he ends up being rewarded since I missed the play rough, and then I get crit by Terra Blast. So this was just a very unfortunate series of turns. Really, my Azu should have always been a guaranteed check to this Jugulus, with also coming out with quite a bit of health left, as you saw how much the initial Terra Blast did, and play rough plus Jet would have easily put him, like, just taking him out, like the combo, like play rough into Jet. But that play rough miss ended up meaning that I had to go for play rough again, and also that Terra Blast crit meant that he ended up 2-hit KOing me instead of 3-hit KOing me. So he ends up living the Jet actually, and takes out my Azu, which was just very unfortunate, solely due to the fact that this match was really coming down to who had the most sacks left. And had my Azu been able to take out his Jugulus, he had to have gone out to Bax, just to number one, revenge kill me, since my Azu would potentially outspeed his Hariyama, and if he went out to Bax, that would just give me free PAWMOT to just claim a kill with CC, and then he would most likely just have Baxcalibur left after he sacked Hariyama, and that's completely fine because I would just sack Roaring Moon and then bring out PAWMOT again to click Fake Out plus Mach Punch or like CC or whatever. So yeah, it was just a pretty unfortunate set of turns, and it puts him ahead in the sack game because now rather than having a Mon to sack to Hariyama so that I could get a little bit more poison chip, I end up having to just be forced to click close combat versus his Hariyama, and I'm unable to kill, so his Hariyama is able to live the hit and take me out, and yeah, just not good. Here I'm forced to go out to my last one, Roaring Moon, click Crunch to claim the kill, and I was really regretting just not having a dragon move on Roaring Moon. See, part of me was really considering running a Dragon move over U-turn. However, I didn't like the fact that my Roaring Moon was kind of walled by Earthworm, so I prioritized running U-turn to just keep up momentum and possibly bring out the likes of my PAWMOT, which is just a great breaker versus him. But here, if I had Dragon move in this endgame, it definitely would have allowed me to just win. But like I said, I only had Crunch, so I'm unable to kill him, and he ends up just taking me out with the Ice Pickle Spear and Ice Shard combo. So yeah, kind of unfortunate that game between the crit on Dragonite plus the what was it, the Play Rough miss into crit Terra Blast was just super unfortunate. I really feel like I had this game like kind of locked down and like it was going to definitely win, but unfortunately the game does not always side with you. So yeah, ended up losing week 3. At this point I'm like 2-1, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, diving into week 4 versus Harris. So this was easily the toughest matchup I would have so far. Harris has an absolutely insane team of Iron Bundle, Great Tusk, Grimmsnarl, Annihilate, with it being his Terramon, plus Bronzong, Dragalge, Talonflame, Altaria. So straight off the bat, my team is very much primarily physical attacking, which is not good when you're trying to kill a bulk up Annihilate. Plus the fact too that all my mons that are faster than him, like faster than his Annihilate, are physical attackers, meaning that I don't have a special attacker that outspeeds Annihilate that can hit it strong enough. The only one I have is maybe like Toadscruel, but even then Toadscruel is not that strong and can easily live. Annihilate can easily live any sort of hit from Toadscruel, no matter if he's like any sort of like Terra set or whatever. So that was number 1 an issue. Number 2 was the fact of Iron Bundle. I did not have a good Iron Bundle switching on my team whatsoever. My real only check was like Azu with Thick Fat, or some type of Dragonite set, but even then, like, Iron Bundle was just super scary to switch into. And so yeah, those were primarily the big 2 threats versus me. Tusk was a little bit annoying, however, like, I did have ways around it, but it was primarily the Iron Bundle and Annihilate. So I know for this matchup, I really debated about what I could do to handle Annihilate, as really this mon was just super difficult to handle. I knew that he would probably be like a maybe like a Terra Fairy set to handle Roaring Moon a little bit better, or I was also predicting possibly a Terra Electric set as well, since that it could allow him to take on PAWMOT electric moves a little bit better as well. So really I was just trying to figure out ways I could deal with Annihilate well, and I know my Dragonite set ended up switching a lot because of that. But let's just dive into the team that I brought. So first off, I had Rocky Helmet Defensive Fortress. So this is my main switch into Great Tusk, as I could eat any sort of hit from him, Headlong Rush, whatever, and allow him to take chip from Rocky Helmet. Plus with Giga Drain, it would give me a strong move to hit him back with, and plus recovering my health. Spikes to just like get up some hazards versus him. And then Volt Switch to allow me to Volt Switch on things like Bronzong as well. Yeah, this is also my switch into Grimmsnarl too. And yeah, kind of a standard set right there. Next up was Dragonite. So we brought Terra Flying Dragonite. The idea behind the set was his only good flying switch-in was Bronzong, and I figured that with Terra Flying, Terra Blast, I would be strong enough to break through and Annihilate with boost, and Terra Flying would also allow me to take on the Tusk as well. And with Dragonite, I could kind of 1v1 his entire team. Even if Annihilate came out and was a Terra Electric set and tried to bulk up alongside me, with Encore I would be able to lock him into the bulk up and then keep spamming my Dragonance and then just Terra Blast through him. So yeah, I figured that my best route to try and win this game was with the TERA Flying Dragonite. The only thing that could kind of be a check to me was like a choice scarf or like booster speed iron bundle, but even then, like, it wasn't the end of the world. And so yeah, that's kind of my thought process behind that. Next up, Azu was a belly drum set. So this belly drum set was kind of multifaceted. I figured that number one, this is my main switch into iron bundle, but I didn't want to run a thick bat set since thick bat does absolutely no damage to his team. So citrus berry allowed me to take I'm pretty sure I think it allowed me to take a hydro pump in the like freeze dry or something like that, or whatever. I can't remember. It was also for the belly drum set as well. Break was there so that I could break any sort of screens from Grimmsnarl. And then even though he had bundle to resist Jet, I was thinking that with Hazard Chip I could put him in range of possibly a Jet later on. And this is kind of just like a both a pivot into iron bundle, but also potentially a breaker as well. Next up, I brought booster energy Roaring Moon. So here, this was kind of just one of the ways I could use to revenge kill Annihilate, as booster energy Roaring Moon could be strong enough to revenge Annihilate if it's around like 50% with the likes of Acrobatics or Crunch. I ran Ironhead in the case that he was Terra Fairy Annihilate, but I was also debating running Earthquake if he was Terra Electric. Dragonance, just because I could potentially get up a Dragonance and clean the rest of his team. He wouldn't be able to T-Wave me with Grimmsnarl because I'm a Dark type, and Acrobatics plus the boost energy attack would allow me to just kind of sweep through his team. So yeah. Next up, we brought PAWMOT with Mirror Herb and Encore. So the idea behind this set was I could potentially use this as a way to kind of check the Annihilate. So in the case that he brought out Annihilate and started clicking bulk up, I could initially bring in PAWMOT, copy the bulk up stat raises with Mirror Herb, and then Encore him into bulk up. And what this would allow me to do would like possibly force him out and start clicking like Thunder Punch into him. And with my bulk and the Spadef that I had, I would be able to eat any sort of Iron Bundle hit. And PAWMOT pretty much has to be the rest of his team besides Talonflame. So with the bulk up boost, I would possibly be able to take out the likes of Tusk and any of his other mons, and basically just function as a breaker that took advantage of his setup. But yeah, that was kind of the idea behind that set. And then lastly was Glamora with Screens and Toxic. So due to Bronzong just kind of walling Glamora, I figured that one of the best ways I could get around that was Corrosion with Toxic, and Toxic was also just super valuable for Annihilate. It sucks because Glamora is not faster than Annihilate, so I had to really rely on like just a straight defensive set. But I was thinking with the likes of Screens, I could possibly enable something like my Azu or Roaring Moon to set up, or potentially get up a Reflect to weaken the damage from incoming like Annihilate or something like that. So yeah, that was sort of the idea behind that. But let's just dive into this final match for this video, our week 4 match versus Harris. So he brought pretty much all the threats that I was worried about. No Talonflame was very nice for PAWMOT, since if I copied the bulk up set, like he could only use bundle to revenge, and I could easily take that out with boosted Mach Punch. So yeah, let's just dive straight into this. He leads off with bundle as I lead my fortress, and this is not a good lead starting off, since I can't afford for fortress to take the hit since I need it for Great Tusk. So I go hard out into my Azu expecting a water move, as he ends up clicking Hydro Pump, and this Azu was built to take Hydro Pump into freeze dry, so this was fine. But he ends up clicking flip turn out, and brings out Dragalge. As I click play rough, since it's a pretty free click, he reveals to be a pretty defensive Dragalge with Rocky Helmet, which makes sense. He didn't have a great switch into Azu. I use this opportunity to go into my Glamora as he clicks Sludge Bomb, so that's very solid for me. I end up then clicking Light Screen. In hindsight, I should have clicked Toxic here, but I think I ended up clicking Light Screen because I didn't want him to click Draco on my Glamora, expecting me to get up hazards, and have my Glamora take a ton of damage. I was actually kind of surprised that he went hard out into Annihilate, but had I gotten off the Toxic, that would have been very, very nice for me. But yeah, ends up going to Annihilate as I get up my Light Screen. He then ends up clicking Bulk Up as well. Here, I honestly can't remember why I clicked Sludge Bomb over clicking Toxic. I think maybe I predicted him to honestly, I can't remember why I ended up clicking Sludge Bomb over Toxic. Regardless, it was kind of a misplay, as I should have easily just clicked Toxic versus him and then gotten up my Reflect. I kind of get rewarded by getting the Sludge Bomb Poison, but even then, just not really a great play from me. He ends up clicking Drain Punch after he sets up to +2/+2. I go to my Fortress to get some Rocky Helmet chip, but he reveals to be the Resto Chesto, so this is really not a good situation for me. And I'm pretty much forced to click Volt Switch to kind of get out of there, and possibly try and use the opportunity to Encore him into like Rest. But yeah, this is already just not looking good. I've already boosted up Annihilate to a lot, and I also can't break through him because I'm not running Bulk Up myself. I really should have ran Bulk Up over possibly like Thunder Punch or something like that. But yeah, my PAWMOT can only just like attack into him and lock him with Encore, so this is already not looking that great. I can't break through this Annihilate. I don't have a mod that's like really faster than him, and yeah, it's just not looking good. I also realized too that I can't just keep encoring him forever, and yeah, this is pretty much the end of this. Straight up, like Annihilate is able to just Rage Fist boost like through my entire team, and yeah, not even multi-scale Dragonite can like take that on. I did predict the TERA correctly with him being TERA Fairy, but yeah, Ironhead from Marmoon is not able to do enough, and he's able to just kind of Rage Fist through the entirety of my team. Definitely not a great showing from me. Annihilate in general was just super hard for my team to deal with, like just not having any sort of special attackers that are strong enough to handle it. Like I considered running like a bulky Rocky Helmet, Terra Flying, Hurricane Dragonite set, but even then, like with Annihilate outspeeding Dragonite naturally, like Rage Fist would easily be able to break through Dragonite, and I felt like it was just not worth it to exchange Dragonite in that way to potentially not even kill Annihilate. So yeah, basically just got washed in this matchup. It was very difficult, like I said from the start, and I also just didn't play around Annihilate that well or had the necessary prep to handle it. So yeah, that ends up bringing us to 2-2. Kind of an unfortunate start, since I feel like we started off very, very strong, but there was still about, I think, maybe 4 or 5 weeks left. So I think yeah, about 4 weeks left, so I wasn't stressing too much, as there was still a lot of room to bounce back. So yes, in the next video we're going to cover our week 5 to 8 games, and yeah, thank you for watching. See you all in the next one. Peace.